Shalom, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Dion Tolly, and this is another addition to the series dealing with the last times and the deliverance of our people, the children of Israel, who are in captivity in Babylon and, and have been for the last 400 years. And this deals with the deliverance of such people. And sorry I don't have all of the entertainment and the production and all of the other videos that most of you see out here on the internet. But I'm telling you, none of them are dealing with the truth. And if there is, it's so convoluted and it's so skewed to where it's not dealing with the severity of the times we live in. And this post or passage you see right up here in front of your face pretty much describes it. This is my videos. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to warn you. And all of the fanfare and all of the production and the colorful stuff, that's not my interest. My interest is for you to see the truth. And the reason why I don't even get into that, because none of that matters. The only thing that matters is the truth, and that's coming from the scriptures. So this is what we present here in these videos, the scriptures. Now, getting right to it, we're going to go to the first passage, but it's dealing with the destruction of Babylon. So thank you for joining me, like I said, the onset, and I appreciate you joining me, and I'm praying for all of those who find this video, as is the other videos that I posted, that it'll bless you and enrich you, because these have become the treasures of my life. And everything that I have ever studied is pertaining to this, and the reason why our people are in such dire straits, and it have been for the last 2,000 years. And that's because of the rejection of the person who spoke this, the Messiah. And it's very important that we understand what's at stake. What's at stake is everybody who is of the seed of Jacob, and if you're a descendant of slave, that's who you are. Then it's incumbent upon you to find your way and take advantage of the things that are afforded you, which are absolutely free. It's crazy, all of the nonsense, all of the garbage. They want contributions, and it's you have to pay for them, and you're buying books and all that, and none of it deals with the actual truth of who we are and what we've done to be in this predicament and the resolution to all of this. So let's get right to it. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the scriptures, and we're going to start with the onset of the premise of pretty much every video that I ever did, and probably will ever do until we're delivered. And that is the scripture that everything that we know in terms of our captivity is hinged on. And that's this prophecy right here, where the father of our people in our race, he had a personal relationship with the Most High. And this was during the time of Babylon and Nimrod. And you can read about that as well earlier in this chapters. But at any rate, he tells Abraham before he has any children. This is why this prophecy is such a powerful prophecy, because it was at the very beginning, speaking at the very end of his lineage and his genealogy. So at any rate, he says, "Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in the land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And afterward they shall come out with great substance." Okay? Now this right here is pertaining to that. A lot of people try to go into that and link this to Egypt. But this is a prophecy as well, where he told them that you would be buried in an old age. You would go to your fathers in peace. And he says, but in the fourth generation there shall come back here again. And we know that from the lineage of Jacob. When Jacob came back with his 12 sons, they came back to the land of Canaan, where Abraham was spoken at. And if you go to Abraham, Yitzhak, Jacob, or Jacob, and his 12 sons, that's 4 generations. So that's when they came back there. And then that's when the captivity in Egypt began, after that generation passed. And that's the 210 years of hard labor that they suffered in Egypt that Moses delivered them from. Just to make a distinction. But getting back to our captivity, we're going to get right into it, because this is the cornerstone of it. And the Most High promised him this. And this is the promise that is just like, the promise of our deliverance, and the promise of salvation, and the promises that all of the Most High's promises. This is the cornerstone. So let's get right to it. Now, first, we're going to go into all of the other supporting scriptures that confirm the judgment of this nation, which is why we're doing this video. This is the topic of this video today. So the first one we're going to go to is Psalms. We're going to go to the book of Psalms. All right. Let me get my mouse right. And we're going to go to 137. Okay. All right. And he says, now by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For there they carried us away captive, required of us a song, and that they wasted us. And they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of those songs of Zion. That's really insulting. How should we sing the Most High song in a strange land? I don't use the word Lord, because I know that is pretty much a connection to the Gentiles who translated the scriptures. And that's the way they address their gods. But ours is Yah, Yahuwah, Elohim, and, different things dealing with Yah. Well, anyway, different names dealing with his name, Yah. And we know that from, just real quick, since we're in Psalms, Psalms 68, I believe it is. Psalms. Well, anyway, we're not going to get in, and I can find it, because I think that's incumbent upon me. If I'm going to start something, let's finish it. So, look to the right. All right, now you see where he says it. Psalm 68:4. I must have passed it. Not paying attention. He said, sing unto God, and praises unto his name. Extol him that rideth upon the heavens by his name, Jah, and rejoice before him. Now, Jah is the translation as well, so we'll give you the translation of it. And the translation is Yah. It's the sacred name. It's the reason why the people who call themselves Jews, who stand in our place, in our land, they call it the sacred name, which means Shem, or Hashem. Hashem, that's what they call it, Hashem. And which is another way of saying that they won't say it, they're just saying it's sacredness of the name, instead of saying it's the name and calling him Hashem, but that's not his name. That just means the sacred name, the definition of the word Yah. Well, at any rate, going back to 137, let's look at what he says about this. Now he says, how should we sing the Most High song, or Elohim song, in a strange land? He says, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let thy tongue cleave to the roof of thy mouth. If I pervert not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Now he says, remember, O Yahweh, the children of Edom, which we are talking about in terms of those who are standing in our place in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. Now he's talking about us. O daughter of Babylon. And you'll see this throughout this series, or throughout this video, where the daughter of Babylon distinguishes this Babylon from the Babylon in Nebuchadnezzar's time, in the time of Daniel. It says, now, O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us. He's talking about justice. And he says, happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones, the children, against the stones. So whatever that is, that's bad. That's some bad stuff. So, and we're going to go from there, and we're going to move down the line and to show you where this is a consistent in the narrative of the Hebrews. So we're going to go from there, and we're going to go to Isaiah. And from Isaiah, we're going to go to Isaiah 47. And in Isaiah 47, he's going to start with, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Remember the daughter. That's what distinguishes us. And when you read the scriptures, this is what distinguishes us from the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar and the Assyrians who eventually took over it, and those who lived in those Chaldeans, which were the sort of the elitist and the Edomite branch, the leadership branch of the Assyrian Empire. And they started Babylon, and they usurped the authority of the Assyrians. And that's why he calls them the Chaldeans. They're not a different race. They're the same people that live over there, but they were called Chaldeans because they were the learned of them. Plus, they were, like I displayed in another video, they were the combination of Edom and the Chittites, or the children of Rome, and that whole lineage that Edom had followed and pretty much became a part of every empire since Egypt. He became a part of Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, the Persians, the Greeks, Romans, and now America. Just so you understand that. Well, anyway, it says, come and sit in the dust. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. It says, take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make thy leg bare, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh. That's like when you're pulling a woman's skirt up and embarrassing her. Pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered. Yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. As our Redeemer, and only the Messiah is our Redeemer, Yahuwah of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. And it says, sit thou silent and get thee into darkness. That's another one we're going to find out later, when Babylon goes into darkness. O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called Lady of the Kingdoms. And when you think of the Statue of Liberty, you pretty much get the goose pimples I did when I first read this. And he said, and I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand. And thou didst show them no mercy. And all of us who are Hebrews, or black people, descendants of slaves, we know that this is true. And it says, upon the ancient, or the old folks, hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. And you see how they treat the elderly in this country. It's appalling. And he says, and thou said, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou did not lay these things to heart, neither did thou remember the latter end of it. He says, therefore hear now this, that thou art given to pleasures, thou that art given to pleasures. Let me get it right. He says, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thy heart, I am, and there's none else beside me. He says, I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. Now remember that passage, because we're going to read that reiterated and spoken again, almost verbatim, in another passage. And he says, but these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day: the loss of children, widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. And that's what we is by our sciences and all of our media and the computers and all of the, the vaccines and all of the different porn, all of the different things that's considered sorceries. And thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, and thou hast said, none seeth me. That's all of the stuff like 9/11 and all of the stuff that everybody know, that they think nobody see. But everybody who's got sight, which are the children of Israel who seek the Most High, particularly through his word, we see. He says, thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it has perverted thee. And thou hast said in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. He said, therefore evil shall come upon thee, and thou shalt not know from where it rises. And mischief shall fall upon me, and thou shalt not be able to put it off. And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Stand thou with thy enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit. If so, thou shalt mayest prevail. He said, thou art weary in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now thy astrologers and stargazers and the monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from the things that shall come upon thee. And he says, behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. And they shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. That's where it is right there. And thou shalt not be a coal to warm at, nor a fire to sit before it. And thou shalt be, and thus shall they be unto thee when thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. And you always hear about the merchants, because the corporations is what rule the world here. So the Most High is particularly addressing them, because they control the kings and the presidents, and they control all of that by their campaign contributions and financing these guys' whole, their whatever campaign or whatever office they're running for. So anyway, even thy merchants from thy youth, thou shalt wander every one to his quarter, and none shall save thee. So now this is about Babylon. This is all dealing with the 400 years, and he says, will I judge? This is what this video is about. The will I judge. That nation whom they shall serve, will I judge. So all of y'all who have been dealing with this disheartening by the fact that after August 20th, we still remain here. Don't be troubled by that. The Most High does everything in his order, and you have to have understanding of it, and particularly be aware of it through his scriptures to be able to trust in what's going to come to pass and what's just conjecture and things that people say and all of the false visions and false interpretations people have. And that's because the scriptures are not left to interpretation. Scriptures tell you the way things are, and the why it's reiterated by all of the prophets is so there is no interpretation. It's like, if we're all saying the same thing, how could you interpret it otherwise? So all of those who think that America is the land that their fathers visited in, and this is the land that's our land, and the Americans took our land, that is some really, really stupid nonsense that shouldn't even be wasted any time on. Well, anyway, let's continue. We're going to go to Jeremiah 50 next. Jeremiah 50, he gets a little bit more detailed about it. All right? Now he says, now this is the word of Yahweh that Yahweh spoke against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. And he says, there declare ye among the nations and publish and set a standard and publish and conceal. Say, Babylon is taken, Bel is confounded, Merodach is broken into pieces, and her idols are confounded. Her images are broken in pieces. And it says, for out of the north shall come up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. And they shall remove, and they shall depart, both man and beast. And we know that this is not Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon, because they remained there even up until after the time of the Romans. He's saying here that as a result of this, ain't nobody going to be there. It says, in those days and at that time, saith Yahweh, the children of Israel shall come, and they and the children of Judah together. So that's meaning the unification of the northern tribe and the southern tribe, which departed after Solomon. And it says, going and weeping, and they shall go and seek the Elohim, their Yahweh. That's the way I read that. You read it the way you want to. And it says, and they shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come, let us join ourselves to the Elohim in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. This is the gathering. All right. Now he says, now my people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. And so I'm just talking about all of these people who claim to teach and on there who have no clue what the scriptures say. And if they do, they don't understand it because they're not seeking it. They're not seeking his faith or seeking his face in truth and following it wherever it leads. You got to be willing to follow the truth wherever it leads, even if it offends you. Now, anyway, it says that they have turned them away on the mountains, and they have gone from the mountain to the hill, and they have forgotten their resting place. And I'm thinking about Masada when I think about that, because if we are the original Hebrews, that story you hear about Masada and the Roman siege, that must have not have been no white folks. And it says, all them that have devoured them, all that found them have devoured them. And their adversaries said, we offend not, because they have sinned against Yahweh. And you see how that's the reason why they treated us. They knew that the Most High had turned his back on us because we had sinned against him and wouldn't forsake and wouldn't hearken to him and forsook his laws, and forsook the covenant. And he says, in the habitation of justice, even the Elohim, the hope of their fathers. So we sinned against him, the habitation of justice, even the Most High, and the hope of their fathers. He says, now remove out of the midst of Babylon, and go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as he-goats before the flocks. For lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country. It would be Russia. And if we're in Israel, that would be Iran. And they shall set themselves in array against her. And from there she shall be taken. And their arrows shall be as a mighty expert man, and none shall return in vain. So he's saying the arrows, which we don't use bow and arrows. So arrows are things that are flying projectiles. They must mean missiles. Because that's the only way they call them, if that's what they called flying projectiles in those days. Well, anyway, it says, Chaldea shall be a spoil, and all that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith Yahweh. Because ye were glad, because ye had rejoiced, O ye destroyers of mine heritage. Remember, Psalms 83, would come, let us cut them off from being a nation. That's what he's talking about here. Oh, shoot. Let me go back. This thing here does always take you to that for some reason. Don't know why it does that. If you just touch this little rhyme here, it'll take you there. So pardon me, folks. Now, let's get back into it. Now, Now, where were we at where the arrows remain? And he says, and Chaldea shall be a spoil, and all that spoil her shall be satisfied, saith the Elohim, because ye were glad, because ye rejoiced, O ye destroyers of mine heritage, because ye are grown fat as the heifer at grass, and billow as bulls. It must be a reference to how, when lambs and goats, or lambs and bulls, cows, when they're really getting a good diet. All right, so your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed. That's England. Behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land and a desert. And that's us. We're the ones that's all the way over here on the west by ourselves. When you look at the geography of where America is, as opposed to the west. And it says, because of the wrath of the Elohim, it shall not be inhabited, but it shall be wholly desolate. Every one that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished, and hiss at her plagues. And it says, put yourselves in array against Babylon, round about. This is talking about a siege, meaning that we've always sieged other nations and putting bases around everything. They're saying it's going to happen to us. All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her. Spare no arrows, for she has sinned against the Elohim. And we just for the record, the Babylon that we're talking about, making a distinction with, that Babylon, if they didn't put it like this, they weren't destroyed in that manner. The kings of Persia just came in and pretty much without firing a shot, just assassinated the kings and the leaders, and they took over that country almost without having to fire a shot at. So that definitely historically isn't talking about Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon. Okay? Well, anyway, let's continue. And it says, shout against her round about. She hath given her hand. Her foundations are fallen. Her walls are thrown down. For it is the vengeance of the Elohim. Take vengeance upon her. As she has done, do unto her. Meaning the way she done treated everybody. And that's what I always tell people, that she's acting this way with her arrogance and the way that she's treating people and doing crazy things and murdering people with impunity. I said, all of that is fine and dandy till it starts to happen to you. Then she'll understand what she's done. And it says, cut off the sower from Babylon, and him that handled a sickle in the time of the harvest. For fear of the oppressing sword, they shall turn everyone to his people, and they shall flee everyone to his own land. So that means before this thing goes down, a lot of people are going to go back to their own land, the ones who are not of America. And that's the Mexicans. That's why they're being oppressed now, and they're being turned back to their own people. We're watching this unfold right in our eyes. All of the people from Nicaragua and the South American nations, we are turning all of them away. All of the things that they claimed they were based on, freedom and allowing all of the people and the castaways from all of the rest of the world, they're not living up to that. Anyway, it says, Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven him away. First, the king of Assyria hath devoured him, and last, his Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, hath broken his bones. So they're saying that this was really the blow that really destroyed us. And he said, therefore, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, Yahweh of Elohim, behold, I will punish the king of Babylon in his land, as I have punished the king of Assyria. And I will bring Israel again to his habitation, and he shall feed on Carmel and Bashan, and his soul shall be satisfied in the Mount Ephraim and in Gilead. These are all places that are in the Middle East, or particularly our land, where some parts of it, like Carmel and Bashan, are like Saudi Arabia and parts of Iraq. And his soul shall be satisfied upon Mount Ephraim and Gilead. And the reason why I go back that far, because the original borders, and we'll go back to that real quick. The original borders, as given to Abraham, he tells him right there, this is where you're going to go. He says, in this same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abraham, saying, unto thy seed. Remember, this is all about seed. So everybody who talks about they Christians and all that other stuff, that tells you that this ain't got nothing to do with what we talking about. This is all about seed. This is blood relationship, family, descendancy. So anyway, he says that he made a covenant with Abraham, unto thy seed I have given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. So if anybody knows any geography over there, that's a heck of a space that he gave them. So let's continue. Now we're going to go to Jeremiah 51. Now Jeremiah 51 continues to reiterate. And he says, thus saith Yahweh, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against him that dwelleth in the midst of them that rise against me a destroying wind, and I will send unto Babylon fanners. Fanners are someone who fan the wind. And they shall fan her and empty her land, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. And against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifted himself up in his brigandine, and spare ye not her young men, and destroy ye utterly all her host. And I keep skipping to it because it's hard to read back from when you get the American English and this old English here that they wrote it and translated in the King James Version from the old English 1600 dialect and lingo. And it's just really crazy. These G's that have you, to say a lot of this stuff real fast, you sound crazy. Well, anyway, let's continue. He says, thus shall the slain fall in the land of the Chaldeans, and they that are thrust through in her streets. So he's saying that they get stabbed up and thrust through in the streets. For Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah of his Elohim, of the Yahweh of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. So in other words, he's saying that we getting out of here. He's saying that we ain't going to be forsaken. He said, even though we did what we did to end up in here, it says, flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul, and be not cut off in her iniquity. For this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance, and he will render unto her a recompense. And it says, Babylon had been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand that had made all the earth drunken, and the nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore the nations are mad. So he's saying that everybody that had followed America's lead, we all nuts now. And if you can see it now, all of the nations are all, there's some kind of upheaval, some kind of protest going on, mass protest going on over the world. And so continuing, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How for her? Take balm for her pain. If so, she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go everyone into his own country. Excuse me. For her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. So the Most High is saying that all of the stuff she's doing with the pollution and everything she's doing, it's done reached the Most High. And she has no more time. She's run out of time at this point. And it says, the Elohim hath brought forth our righteousness. Come, let us declare in Zion the work of the Elohim, our Yahweh. Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. The Elohim hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, for his device is against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Elohim, the vengeance of his temple. Now we're going to stop there just for context. The Medes, he's telling you here, make bright the arrows. So what arrows you know are bright other than missiles? And he says, because he's going to raise up the spirit of the kings of the Medes. Now we all know, let's go into the Medes. Let's go into the Medes. Okay. Medes, an Iranian people who inhabited ancient Media, established an extensive empire during the 7th century BC. So that's 700 years before Messiah, which was conquered by Cyrus the Great of Persia in 550 BC. So the Medes are Iranians. They're an ancient Iranian people. And they come from their father, who's one of the 7 sons of Japhet, Madai. And we'll see that here. We'll see that here in Genesis chapter 10. See that? Madai. So these are the descendants of them. Okay, and the sons of Gomer, which the Jews are a part of, those are the French. That's why the Ashkenaz Jews there. It's part of their lineage. Okay, moving on. We're going back to Jeremiah 51. Now let's go back to Jeremiah 51. Okay. So, we got to the point to where the arrows are bright. All right. Now he says, he says, he raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes. He said, for his device is against Babylon, to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Yahweh, the vengeance of his temple. So he blaming them for what happened in Jerusalem. Ooh, that's terrible. And the fact that they drove us out, destroyed the whole city in 70 AD. It says, set up the standard upon the walls of Babylon, make the watch strong, set up the watchmen, prepare the ambushes. For Yahweh hath both devised and done that which he spake against the inhabitants of Babylon. And he says, O thou that dwellest upon many waters. And this meaning that we got bases all over the world. Our money and our language is right under whatever the native language is. If you go to any of the nations, under it is English. So that means that we are the dominant society and the dominant force on the earth. And it says that we're abundant in treasures. We already know that. He says, thine end is come, and the measure of thy covetousness. It's us always wanting more and always trying to do everything that their heart desire. It says, for the Yahweh of hosts has sworn by himself, saying, surely I will fill thee with men as with caterpillars, and they shall lift up a shout against thee. So he's saying that how a dead corpse got caterpillars all over it. And he says, and he hath made the earth by his power, and he hath established the world by his wisdom, and hath stretched out the heaven by his understanding. And when he uttereth his voice, there shall be a multitude of waters in the heavens, and he shall cause us the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. He maketh the lightnings with rain, and bringeth forth the wind out of his treasures. He says, every man is brutish by his knowledge. Every founder is confounded by a graven image. And this is a nation of idolaters. Everything is about idolatry here. Worshipping of images and singers and, come on, endless drugs, everything. For his molten image is falsehood. This is pretty much the image of the white Jesus image. And all of the gold crosses and all of that stuff. He says, there is no breath in them. They are vanity, the work of errors, and in their time of visitation they shall perish. He says, for the portion of Jacob is not like them, for he is the former of all things. See that? Everything comes from us. We're the beginning of everything. Progenitors of everything that we know of on this earth. Technologies are just extensions of this. And Israel is the rod of his inheritance, and Yahweh of hosts is his name. And he says, thou art my battle axe and my weapon of war. For with thee I will break in nations, break in pieces the nations. And with thee I will destroy kingdoms. And with thee I will break in pieces the horse and the rider. So this tells me, with thee I'm going to do this. This tells me that we're going to be a part of this fight. Just from the fact that this is in the whole narrative of destruction of Babylon. He's talking about us being his battle axe. So explain that one to me. That's because he's telling you. He says, I will render unto Babylon and all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith Yahweh. So he's telling you, we're going to be a part of this. With thee I will break in pieces man and woman. With thee. With who? With us. Because he's talking about Jacob's portion. So this is us. I will break in pieces the husbandmen and the yoke of oxen, and with thee I will break in pieces the captains and rulers. We ain't going to get too deep into that one. Now let's keep going. And he's saying that the mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holes, and their might hath failed, and they have become as women. Oh, we're the tough guys now. They have burned their dwelling places. Our bars are broken. One post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babylon that his city is taken at one end. That must be old Mr. Trump. And the passages are stopped, and the reeds they have burned with fire, and the men of war are affrighted. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her, which I translated to thrasher. Anyway, yet a little while, and at the time of her harvest shall come. All right, now let's move on to Micah 4:10, because he starts to get back into Babylon again, and because remember, Jeremiah is in the days of Babylon, of those days, prophesying about our Babylon. And he still goes into it because there's more to this too. He talks about the sea coming us against us. My people, go ye out of the midst of her and deliver ye every man his soul from the fierce anger of Yahweh. This is us. He said, in their heat I will make their feasts, and I will make them drunken, that they may rejoice and sleep a perpetual sleep and not wake. It's going to be deep, man. I skipped over a lot of it, but it says there that shall become heaps, a dwelling place for dragons, an astonishment, and an hissing without an inhabitant. What's a dragon in the Hebrew? Tanim. Tan. Satan. See that root word there? Yaktan. So the tan is the operative word there. A marine or land monster, a sea serpent or jackal. Damn. That's deep. Moving on. Let's go to Micah 4:10. Now, Micah 4:10 deals with a little bit. He says, now for context, he says, in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of Yahweh shall be established at the top of the mountain, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and the people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth from Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And he shall judge many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. And nation shall not lift up the sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. This is after it's all said and done. But that's a prophecy as well. But the Most High sometimes goes back and goes back to before it, meaning that things are not always in chronological order. Like this one here, he goes back to Babylon. It says, be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion. That's us. Remember, daughter always represents the future descendants of the present Zion of those days, or the present Babylon of those days. The word daughter is all through the scriptures as referring latter day descendants of them. And we can prove that real quick. Just put daughter in. Right? And let's just look at the whole Bible. All right. All right. Let's get into the prophecies. Matter of fact, let's go into the prophets. All right. All right, hold on. Oh, that's why it moved on me. Sorry about that, folks. This thing is going to be very slippery. Daughter of Zion, daughter of Diblaim, daughter of troops, daughter of Jerusalem, daughter of Babylon. Daughter of Zion is all over the place, including ours. But going back there, it says, like a woman in travail, for now thou shalt go forth out of the city. It's a prophecy of them leaving and being kicked out of the city. And Messiah told them that they were going to leave and they were going to surround Jerusalem with armies, and that was going to be it until he returns. And he said, thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. And he says, now there shalt thou be delivered. There the Elohim shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. So this is 5 witnesses I have brought to you. That this deliverance, wrapped in this judgment, will take place. So let's move on to Zechariah. Zechariah 2:7. I think it is. Okay. He says, deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwelleth with the daughter of Babylon. He says, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations, which spoiled you. For he that toucheth you touches the apple of his eye. He said, behold, I will shake my hand upon them. That's mean beat them down. And they shall be a spoil to their servants. And ye shall know that the Yahweh of hosts has sent me. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come. All right, y'all hear this? I come, and I will dwell in the midst of thee, saith Yahweh. And many nations shall be joined unto Yahweh in that day, and shall be my people, and I will dwell in the midst of them. And thou shalt know that the Yahweh of Elohim has sent me unto thee. This is the Messiah. People don't understand that. Everybody looks at the Father as though it's an entity that can be in the presence like a man, and they don't understand in the spirit it don't operate that way. That which is made of flesh is flesh, and that which is made of spirit is spirit. And he's saying that his creation, and as you read in the narrative of the scriptures, most of the Most High's angels couldn't stand in his presence. It was just too magnificent. It was too powerful. So he had a son, which is however he had it, which means that he didn't have sex with a woman or anything, or had a female god or of any sort. He made a Messiah. And he gave his Messiah as a representation of himself to his creation. And he gave a Holy Spirit, which is the presence of the Most High everywhere in his creation. That's what John meant by the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. This is what he's talking about. And he's going to dwell among us again. I will dwell in the midst of thee. So anyway, moving on, he tells you that we're going to go into 2 Kings. I wanted to go into 2 Kings real quick for some historical background about the Medes and some other things. So let's go into 2 Kings. And we're going to go to the 17th chapter. And we're going to go into the fall of Israel. And it says, in the ninth year of Hosea, the king of Assyria took Samaria. Samaria is where the 10 tribes, we consider the 10 lost tribes of Israel. That's where they stayed. And the Judah and Levi stayed in Jerusalem and the land of Judah to the south. And it says, and carried away Israel captive, or carried away Israel away into Assyria, and placed them in Hala and in Kabor or Habor by the river Gazan, in the cities of the Medes. So you get that? We were in captivity to the Medes, to the Iranians before. For it was so that the children of Israel had sinned against Yahweh the Elohim, which had brought them out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh Echa. That's who it was, but anyway, out of the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and they feared other gods. Pharaoh Necho was a whole other song. I don't know why I mentioned that, but you'll see the connection in the post that I do about that in a future date. But at any rate, it says, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom Yahweh had cast out from before the children of Israel, and the kings of Israel, which they had made. So we cleaned ourselves up and then went right back to the same stupid stuff. And the children of Israel did secretly those things which were not right against Yahweh the Elohim. And they built them high places in all their cities, in the tower, and the watchmen, and the fenced cities. And they set up images and groves in every high hill, and under every green tree. And it says, and there they burnt incense in all the high places, and did the heathen whom Yahweh had carried away before them, and did as the heathen did, and brought wicked things to provoke Yahweh to anger. And they served idols, where Yahweh had said to them, ye shall not do this thing. So this is what Christianity is. Serving idols, crosses, white Jesus pictures everywhere, just a whole fish, just all kind of idolatry. Yet Yahweh testified against Israel and against Judah, and by all the prophets and by all the seers, turn ye from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, you would not hear, but harden your necks, like the neck of their fathers, that they did not believe in the Elohim, their Yahweh, as they rejected his statutes and his covenants that he made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain, and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning the Yahweh, concerning whom Yahweh had charged them, that they should not do like them. And they left all the commandments of Yahweh their Elohim, and made them molten images, even 2 calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the host of heaven. That's the stars and the moon and the Jupiter, and they served Baal. And they even caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of Yahweh, to provoke him to anger. Therefore Yahweh was angry with Israel, and removed them out of his sight, and there was none left but the tribe of Judah only. And Judah kept not the commandments of Yahweh Elohim. He said, they also Judah kept not the commandments of Yahweh their Elohim, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made. And Yahweh rejected all of the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of the spoilers, until he had cast them out of their sight. See? Savarbayim, Spain. We were in Spain. Savarbayim is Spain. Kamath is India. Babylon, Iraq, Ava, Turkey, and all of it. We were scattered into those places. And the Most High is using them to come back and destroy this nation. Isn't that something? Now let's go to 1811. And it says, and Assyria did carry away Israel into Assyria, and put them in Haline and Habor, and by the river Gazan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they had not observed the voice of Yahweh their Elohim, but transgressed his covenant, and all that Moses the servant of Yahweh commanded, and they would not hear them, nor do them. And here's a situation where they've been through this before, where the Most High is attacked in an army to break them. And just real quick, he talks about how Sennacherib attacks Judah, and then he comes after where he killed 185,000, defies the Most High. Sennacherib, Hezekiah's prayer. This is what he prays against it, because Sennacherib was talking against the Most High. And you can read about this in this 2 Kings chapter here. And it says Isaiah prophesied Sennacherib's fall. And when you think about Assyria, think about Iran in those days, because that's where Iran. And then they reemerged again in the Persian Empire, but added more territory to it. You know, the empire expanded vastly in those days. But anyway, he told them that after he said that messengers had reproached Yahweh, and had said, the multitude of thy chariots, I am come up to the height of the mountains, to the sides of Babylon. I will cut down the tall cedars thereof. So he was talking drunk. He was talking reckless against the Most High. And so he says, anyway, it says, it came to pass at that night that the angel of Yahweh went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185, fourscore and five is 85,000, 185,000. And when they rose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. So King Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, departed and went and returned and dwelt in Nineveh. So you hear that? He sent one angel who killed 185,000 of them. And I'm only showing you to let you know what America's in for. America's in for a big surprise. He says, listen to this about the Medes now. He says, now behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which will not regard silver. And as for gold, they shall not delight in it. And their bows shall also dash young men to pieces. And they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. And their eyes shall not spare children. And Babylon, the glory of the kingdoms, America, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when Yahweh overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. So this means nuclear, because that's what destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, fire. Rain down from skies just like a nuclear weapon. So remember, they detonate nuclear weapons in the sky. Most of the time. I think the one in Hiroshima, that was hitting the ground. Left a crater the size of the moon. Anyway, and he says, and it shall never be inhabited, neither shall be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. So he's letting you know that this is going to be something that nobody is going to be able to deal with. That even the Arabians after that ain't going to come there, which we're going to show you there for distinction who these Arabians are and the fact that they're going to be part of the battle. Well, anyway, the wild beasts in the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and the owls shall dwell there, and the satyrs shall dance there. And the wild beasts in the island shall cry in their desolate houses, and the dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. So if Babylon is finished when this starts to take place. And 51:11, did I show you that one? Which I'm almost sure I did. I'm almost sure I did.